Hi, welcome back to our channel and we are discussing tutorials on Python. Today we would be finishing the string operations in Python and now I would show you some methods that we can call on string variables and see how do they perform. So for example, if I use a method called dot upper on a string variable, then it would capitalizes all the entities alphabets that I passed in string. So for example, I declared a string in my variable a and then I called the method a.upper and if I pass that in print statements, what it would do. Let's run it and see what happens. So you can see that all the elements in my string were capitalized. Similar to dot upper, we can also use another method that is called dot lower and let's run it also and see what happens. As you can see in my string hello world from A, all the letters were converted into lowercase letters. And now I would show you another method with which you can remove the white spaces or you can save the blanks in the string. So for example, if I have a string with this a hello world and you can see by this line of code all these previous strings are replaced and this is now current value of a. So if I called a method called a.strip and I pass in no arguments, then it would remove the white spaces in my string. So let's run and see what happens. So you can see that the dot strip method removes the white spaces, removes the white spaces from the start and the end. In our case, in my this string, I had a space here before age, and when I run the method a.strip, it removed that space and my new string started with the word age. So now I would show you another method in which I can replace one specific character with a specific one. So for example, if I want to replace age in hello world with a j, then I would have to use a method called a.replace and I would pass two parameters, the one to look for and the one to replace with. So if I run this line of code, you can see that all the instances where there was age is now replaced with a j and it becomes a jello world. Funny, right? Now I would show you another example of string where we use split operation to divide my string based on a separation operator. So for example, if I have a string hello, comma world, and I use the print statement with passing a method called dot split, and I use the argument comma here, so what would it do? It would return me the string and it would return a list and it would divide my string into two categories where they were separated with a comma. So if I run this line of code, what I would get, it would be two parts of my string, hello and world, and it would be a list. So let's start again with using a plus operator in joining string. And as I told you in previous videos, when we are using a plus operator, then it should have same data types. So for example, if I have a variable a with hello and b with world, then I can concatenate all these using a plus operator and I pass an empty string with a blank space here and then what would happen, it would just join my three strings. And if I run this line of code, you can see that it prints hello world. Hello is for A, this blank is from these quotation marks here, and this world comes from B. And now I would show you how to use integers with the strings. So I have defined a variable age that is basically an integer class. And now I would show you how to join it in my strings. So if I use the plus operator again with my string, for example, my name is John and I am whatever 36, but I cannot use this. As you can see that my pie charm is highlighting this variable age, and it is telling me that expected type of string was a good use instead of an integer. So if I run this line of code, I would get an error because this was not an integer and it can only concatenate the same data types as I told you before. And just a reminder, when we were using commas instead of plus, then there was no problem with the data types. So we would just comment it because it is of no use, no usage. And as we have learned in the previous videos, that we can change the data type of a variable. And here I am using a Python keyword str to change the data type of my integer to string. And if I does so, what would happen? It would return me a string that would say my name is John and I am 36. So this is one method of doing that. We can just change the class of the variable. And another method is we can use the method in strings called format. And how does it work? I would show you in a bit. So the second way of doing the same thing is using a dot format method from the string. What it would do, it would just format the type of my variable age and it would add it to my string. So what happens if I do this and I call uh, the method dot format and I pass the variable age. The way of doing this is we pass a empty curly bracket here, and then in the next line we would format the variable in which we pass this empty curly bracket. So if I run this line of code, I would get my name is John and I am 36, quite right. So we can use formatting on multiple variables as well. In the next example, I would show you how. So you can see that preceding to that, I have three variables called quantity, item number, and price. Now I want to format all three in my string. I want blank pieces of item, blank, and for blank dollars. So I would just again use the empty curly brackets for the positions where I want to format, and then I would use a print statement, and on my string I would call the dot format operation again, and I would pass those values. So if I run this line of code, what would I get? I would see that I want three pieces of item 567 for 49.95 dollars. You can see that quantity was my first variable and it has come here. And if you want to shuffle the indexes of this, you can also try different indexing here. So for example, I have to pay this much of amount, but this in my formatting is at the last. And we remember, and if we recall that our Python indexes start from 0, so it would be at index 0, it would be at index 1, and it would be at index 2. And if I run this one now, then it would return this statement: I want to pay $49.95 for three pieces of item 567. So you can shuffle with indexes if you want to, but if you don't pass the indexes, then it would get by default the one with the ascending order. Now, if you want to put double quotes in a string, then you have to use a backslash operator with quotation marks, and this is how it works. So, it would be the end of the tutorial, and stay tuned. Happy learning. Please subscribe.